we're going to have Carrie Bailey come and do a demonstration of LSVT Big. Carrie is a lead physical therapist at Cadence Health in Wheaton. She has specialties which include balance and vestibular disorders, Parkinson's, other movement disorders. She has an advanced certification in LSVT Big. So let's bring Carrie up and see what she has to say. Thank you.
So thank you all for being here, and I'd like to thank the Midwest chapter of the APDA for putting on such a wonderful event full of great information and networking opportunities. It's such an exciting time for research and progress in the fight against Parkinson's, and this kind of event is so exciting to be part of. I also want to thank Mr. Chuck Schwab for inviting me to be here today. My name is Carrie Bailey, and I'm a physical therapist with Northwestern Medicine. I am fortunate to work for an organization that supports and encourages us to be a part of the treatment of Parkinson's disease and affords me the opportunity to work with some of the world's brightest minds in neuroscience. Through the encouragement of our wonderful doctors, I was able to go to a certification course in the foremost treatment of Parkinson's disease, LSVT Big, and I'm thrilled to share some of that information and knowledge with you. In the interest of full disclosure, I have no financial ties with LSVT Global, and I'm receiving no monetary reimbursement for being here today. LSVT Global, as an organization, has received funding through the National Institutes of Health for much of their research and development. So, objectives for my presentation: I hope to briefly explain the advances in neuroscience and their impact on the field of rehabilitation, and also describe development, data, and exercises of LSVT Big. As I was saying, it's a very exciting time to be in rehabilitation today. We're understanding more now than ever before on how, at the molecular level, exercise can really affect our brains. We know not only exercise helps with cardiovascular and musculoskeletal health, but also it can really help with our central nervous systems. It wasn't that long ago that that therapy for Parkinson's disease was only prescribed in the advanced stages of Parkinson's, and that was only for secondary impairments such as falls, or to assess for assistive devices, and train compensatory techniques. Rarely or ever were patients referred to treatment for the primary symptoms of Parkinson's, such as bradykinesia or hypokinesia. Attitudes now have shifted, and due to recent progress in neuroscience literature, we have seen how valuable exercise can become in symptom management and function in PD in even the earliest stages. Now we can say with confidence that just as pharmacological and surgical interventions are standard and legitimate options for symptom management in Parkinson's disease, so is targeted body and voice exercise. We'll take a look how even after pharmacological treatment is optimized, that people with Parkinson's disease still have untapped and further potential to improve their function and further their control over their symptoms through intensive voice and body exercise. I'd like to take a look at a patient case. This patient's name is Bernie. He is a 71-year-old male who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 1994. He was referred to physical therapy because his walking had deteriorated to a point where he was unable to participate in most activities with his family. So I have a video that I hope will play on pre and post LSVT Big training for Bernie. So on the left side of the screen, you see the pre-LSVT Big training, where Bernie is walking with a cane. You can see that his steps are slow, shuffling, shorter step length. And then on the right, the drastic change after treatment, 4 weeks of treatment, where his step length or stride length is longer, his steps are more secure, you can see more arm swing, and he's no longer using his assistive device. He's also able to cover a lot more distance before fatigue sets in, and he's able to turn much more easily and quickly. This is leading to increased safety and community ambulation for Bernie. So case study outcomes for Bernie. You can see that he made some significant changes in outcome measures that were used. His falls decreased from 1 to 2 times per month to 0 while he participated in the program. He stopped using his cane after the first week of treatment. His activity-specific balance confidence scale score increased from 37% to 56%. His gait velocity made significant change, and he also made a change in his 6-minute walk test, indicating that his endurance had improved. So where did we begin? Meet Mrs. Lee Silverman. She's the woman with advanced Parkinson's disease for whom this treatment is named. LSVT stands for Lee Silverman Voice Treatment. When Dr. Lorraine Ramig, the inventor of LSVT, met her in 1987, her family's main wish was that they could just hear and understand her. It was at the Lee Silverman Center for Parkinson's Disease in Scottsdale, Arizona, that Dr. Ramig developed and studied the initial protocol for speech treatment known today as LSVT Loud. This speech treatment is the basis for LSVT Big in physical and occupational therapy. Dr. Ramig used clinical data from the center to begin National Institutes of Health funded research on LSVT. There's over 25-year research track record under the direction of Dr. Ramig, from the invention of LSVT Loud and later to the translation to LSVT Big in the 2000s and beyond. LSVT Global is fortunate to have received over $8 million worth of NIH funding, which has helped establish the efficacy of LSVT treatments. Research on LSVT continues today, and their mission is to implement research into real-world clinical practice. We do this through clinician training, such as the training that I went to get certified, and we also try to disseminate our work into the medical, allied health, and Parkinson's communities. The LSVT programs really adhere to the known principles that drive activity-dependent neuroplasticity, which is our ability to change at the brain level for our ability to move and function. We know that intensive and specific treatments are crucial in making improvements in Parkinson's disease. So let's now talk about the transition from loud to big. After many years of using LSVT Loud in the treatment of voice in Parkinson's disease, LSVT Big was developed through a collaboration with LSVT research team and researchers at the University of Arizona. What are the fundamentals of LSVT Big? They're standardized, research-based, and they're a specific protocol for patients with Parkinson's disease. The fundamental of target is bigness. We want to train large amplitude movements. Our mode for training is intensive and high effort. So just like with rock steady boxing, we want to do high effort, high intensity exercises. And the fundamental of calibration is related to taking things learned in the clinic and using them in real life. So taking the skills that you learn in therapy and applying them to walking to the grocery store, walking to your car, navigating your home and community environments. If a patient is successfully calibrated, then we know that they've made a change in their sensory system, their internal cueing, and there's been a change in their neurocycle status. So let's explore these fundamentals further. Fundamental number 1 of target, big, large amplitude and whole body movements. This sketch was made by an LSVT Big workshop patient volunteer who had PD. He was so moved after just 1 hour of treatment that he drew this sketch on a napkin. His perception of movement before attending the patient practicum is shown on the left. As you can see, after his hour-long session, his perception of himself is much different. Notice that not only is his stride length longer, but his arm swing is bigger, he's going faster, standing up straighter, and he even looks happier. I see this happen over and over again with using the treatment of LSVT Big in the clinic. Fundamental number 2 is the mode, so our delivery, intensive and high effort. LSVT Big is given in a one-on-one intervention environment by a certified LSVT Big physical or occupational therapist. It is issued on 4 consecutive days per week for 4 weeks, totaling 16 sessions in 1 month, and the sessions are 60 minutes in length. Patients are given daily carryover assignments and daily homework. And then fundamental number 3 is calibration. So calibration addresses that mismatch between online perception of output and how others perceive it. So typically people with Parkinson's disease feel that they're moving with normal movements when really those in the community around them observing them see that they're moving much more slowly than that. So if you videotape someone and show them how they're actually moving, a lot of times we hear things like, I had no idea how small my world had become. And then when we show them exercises that we would like them to do to increase their bigness of movement, they look at us and say, well, I can't move like that. People will think I'm crazy. So we need to change that calibration. So put into kind of graph format. Starting looking at the bottom of the chart here, you see there's reduced drive from the brain, resulting in reduced amplitude of motor output, so smaller movements and slower movements. The person with Parkinson's disease does not recognize that these movements are small and slow, and therefore they continue to self-cue that reduced drive. They're stuck in this circle pre-treatment. So our treatment focus then is to change this cycle. What we do is start again at the bottom. LSVT big perturbs the system by increasing the amplitude of drive and motor output. This results in larger and often faster movements. We retrain patients to recognize that the larger movements are not too big, rather within normal limits. At the end of therapy, patients are habitually driving greater amplitude of output, resulting in increased drive of movements. They're now in a better, more normal cycle of functioning. So let's look at some of the data that we've accumulated here. One of the big studies that was done in 2010 in Germany is called the Berlin LSVT Big Study. I'm not sure how much of that you can read, but what it's basically showing is that it's a randomized controlled trial of 60 patients, and they were randomly put into one of 3 different groups. There were 20 that were put into an LSVT big group, 20 into a Nordic walking group, which is the standard approach for Parkinson's disease in Germany. And then 20 people were put into a home exercise program with a combination of balance and strengthening. The groups were randomized, and they all got the same total number of exercise hours throughout the study. So what this graph is then showing is the outcomes. On the very left side of the screen, you can see that all of the groups started at the exact same point, which is what you want to see in a study to show that any changes made over the course of that study can be related to the changes from the treatment that was actually given. The outcome measure used in this study is the United Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, or UPDRS. And as discussed earlier, when patients' level of functioning improves, their score in the UPDRS actually goes down. So when looking at this graph, that dashed hash mark line that actually goes below the initial starting point shows improvement, and that is the group that was in the LSVT big training. So you can see that rapidly over the first 4 weeks, they made huge improvements on that UPDRS score. And then through week 16, with the termination of the study, they continued to make gains in their function. The other 2 groups, consisting of the walking and the home exercise program, according to that line you can see at 4 weeks, were actually higher on the UPDRS scale, indicating that their condition had worsened. And then 16 weeks post-treatment, you can see that they are still in a condition that's worse than when they actually started. So huge evidence in highlighting the fact that LSVT big actually made significant gains in 4 weeks and maintained those gains over a long period of time. So in large movements, walking and all that we discussed, so what about fine motor tasks? Even small movements are too small in people with Parkinson's disease. Examples, writing, buttoning, teeth brushing, stirring, things like that all remain difficult for people with Parkinson's disease. However, we can change that through large amplitude movements, even without training. For example, this is a handwriting sample taken by a therapist. On the first day of treatment, the therapist had the patient write down 10 things that were difficult for them, and then on the last day of treatment, had the patient write down the exact same list. And as you can see, from week 1, day 1, to the end of treatment, the handwriting got larger and more legible. And this was all without the therapist training handwriting. They just went through the LSVT program and didn't specifically work on handwriting training. So even though they're training large amplitude movements, there's a change in the smaller amplitude movements such as writing. So what's the treatment protocol? What does the LSVT BIG look like? To review, 4 consecutive days per week over 4 weeks, 16 sessions in 1 month, and 60-minute sessions. There's 4 different components to each session. Maximal daily exercises, there's 7 of those. Functional component tasks, there's 1 that everybody does, which is sit to stand, and then the other 4 are patient-driven, depending on what's important to the patient and difficult for the patient. Hierarchy tasks are next. Those are also patient-identified tasks, and they're larger complexity movements. Playing golf, transferring into and out of a car, things that you can build up in complexity over the 4 weeks of treatment. And finally, you also work on walking big, and the distance and time of that may vary. So now I have some video presentation of some of the different exercises that you'll do. So the first 2 movements are maximum sustained movements, and these work on endurance and posture with patients. So the first one is floor to ceiling. So you're going to start with big posture, legs wide, back nice and straight off of a surface, and you want to bring your arms forward big, down big, up big, and back big. And then this is a sustained movement, so you're going to hold for a count of 10. And you do that for 10 counts, and then at the end of the 10 counts, you're going to finish big, and that's kind of a slap on the thighs. And again, you start with a nice big posture, so you'll see her come forward on the chair, that nice big wide posture, sitting nice and tall and upright. You'll bring one arm out to the side big, and then reach across big. You want to reach big, and then use that leg to reach back even further big. And then again, this is a sustained movement, so you're going to hold for that 10 count. And then at the end of the 10 count again, you'll do the big finish, slapping the thigh. So this again is working on endurance, so holding that posture, and then the nice upright posture will also train the postural strength and stability muscles. Then we move into our multidirectional repetitive movements. So you have 3 of those, a forward step, a side step, and a backward step. And these help with initiation and termination of movements. So the forward step first. And these no longer require that 10-second hold. They're not the sustained movements here. So start with nice big posture, step forward big, arms go back big, and then you return and slap. Then there's a sideways step. So stepping to the side big, arms out big, and then return big. And finally, the backward step. And this one adds a little bit of a bow to it. As you can see, these movements are all different. They're not your typical bicep curls and that, so it takes a little getting used to it and learning here. In this one, you start with those arms. You're going to bring your arms out forward. You step back big, take a big bow. The front toe comes off the ground, ensuring weight shift to the back of the back foot, and then you stomp and finish big. So everything is big. In a treatment session, you'll probably hear big till your ears bleed. Multidirectional repetitive movements are next. There's 2 of those, forward, backward, rock and reach, and sideways rock and reach. These help with trunk rotation and movement and just kind of loosening and decreasing some of the stiffness. So forward rock and reach first. Start with a nice wide posture. You're going to swing your body back and forth with a rocking motion. Big lift off from the back, big lift off from the front, and reach, rocking, and reaching. Nice big arms. So you add those arms in to multitask, and I think that was one thing that was brought up earlier, is that multitasking is difficult. And then you switch, the other leg is going to go in front, and you do the same thing. So you start with that kind of rocking back and forth, get the feel for the movement, rock forward big, rock back big, and add the arm swing. Nice and big, wide arm swing. And then the sideways rock and reach. So this one again, you start with a nice wide posture, stand nice and tall. You'll bring those arms around, across, and turn. So you're pivoting on that back foot to get a nice big wide turn so that you're looking towards the back. And again, for this one, you do both sides, so you're going to turn towards one side, and then you'll repeat and turn towards the other side. The functional component tasks, again, the first one is always going to be sit to stand, and then the rest are patient driven. So walk and reach, stand and turn, sit to stand, floor to stand, and here's the video of how we do the sit to stand. So reach forward and down big, and stand big, and then sit back down. Hierarchy tasks are those real-world big tasks that are patient-driven. They're a little bit more complex in nature and can build up in complexity throughout the 4 weeks of treatment. Getting into and out of bed, doing laundry, going out to church or the restaurant, playing with children and grandchildren, all of those larger things that have many components to them. So you'll start on week 1 working with some components and then add components in as the weeks go on. The overall treatment goal for LSVT Big is that we hope that people with Parkinson's disease will use their bigger movements automatically in everyday living. There'll be long-term carryover of increased amplitude use. So while we're saying big over and over and over in the treatment session, by the end of the 4 weeks, we hope that you're cueing and doing movements big without us being there constantly saying big, big, big. So in summary, there have been many advances in neuroscience that have provided neurobiological and behavioral evidence supporting the positive impact of exercise-based protocols in people with PD. There's a rapidly growing literature base in physical therapy and exercise protocols in humans with PD. And LSVT programs have been developed and studied over the past 20 years and have been proven to be very efficacious. LSVT Big is one type of physical therapy program that has the potential to offer improvements in movement and quality of life for people with Parkinson's disease. So how do you get started with LSVT Big and LSVT Loud? Ask your doctor. They can refer you to, they can write a prescription and refer you to either speech or physical therapy and occupational therapy for evaluation and treatment. You can also visit lsvtglobal.com to find an LSVT Loud or Big certified clinician in your area. There are also exercise DVDs available to introduce you to these movement exercises, and that can be found also on the LSVT Global website. So I want to leave you with a quote from a graduate of both LSVT Loud and LSVT Big. It is possible to take charge of your life, even with Parkinson's. It is possible for your will to override your brain. It is possible to have power over Parkinson's. Any questions for me? Yes?
What do the thigh slap and the counting accomplish?
So the counting is really just to give you the posture, to hold the posture for that prolonged time, to build up endurance and postural strength. When patients count out loud, it also gets into some voice training, so we can encourage patients to count loud. So even though I'm not a speech therapist and have not been trained in LSVT Loud, I can incorporate the counting to help with voice therapy as well. The thigh slapping and the stomping that you see in that's to help with the starting and stopping mechanism. So the freezing episodes or that fascinating gait where can't stop what you're doing, that movement pattern, the slaps and the stomps help with that starting and stopping. Good question, thank you. Yes?
I know it helps the symptoms of Parkinson's and maybe even slows it down or improves it. Does it do anything as far as dopamine in the brain?
It will not change it won't change the physical or the neurological aspects of the disease. The way that it slows the progression is that it will improve your function, slowing the side effects of Parkinson's, I guess. So it's not going to change at the brain level in the dopamine, but because you're improving your function, it slows the progress of the disease that way. Does that make sense or answer the question? Okay. Okay, one more. Yes. Okay, so those poses are similar to yoga poses, which makes sense, yeah, with the stretching and the sustained movements. Very good, thank you for that input. We're good? Okay, sorry, well, let's do one more.
Isn't it true that the big program is established for Parkinson's?
It was established for Parkinson's patients with what? It is most efficacious earlier in the process of Parkinson's, but it is used across the board with all stages of Parkinson's. Absolutely. Yes, we've shown positive effects no matter where in this stage of Parkinson's you are. Thank you very much.